It's been a real pleasure, Rob and Charlene, to follow your blog and to keep up to date with the things you've been doing. It's a real joy as well to welcome members of the family with us today, this morning. You're very welcome. It's lovely to have you with us. And Rob and Charlene are going to come and share some news so we can keep updated, and then we're going to pray with them at the conclusion of our time together. So if I give you that one, and Stuart's going to turn the other one on. Just press the red button. Lovely. Let's give them a welcome, shall we?
Good morning. It's really good to be with you this morning. It's really good to see the church looking so amazing. Massive change. I'm particularly enjoying those chairs. Sorry, those of you sitting up there, but those are amazing. Yeah, it's really good to be with you. Charlene.
So we've been living and working in Uganda for the last 7 months with a Christian organisation called Revelation Life. We've been working with families living in slum conditions around the capital, Kampala. And it's really been unlike any other 7 months of our lives. We've learned a lot and experienced so much, and we're really looking forward to sharing a little bit with you this morning.
So, hopefully this will work. Roll it. Aha, thank you. So, we just want to start by sharing with you a passage from Scripture which has been very important to us both before we left and also in our time so far in Uganda. And it's from Isaiah. I'm going to have to look at the screen because I can't see back there. And it says, "The Spirit of the Sovereign Lord is on me, because the Lord has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. He sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim freedom for the captives and release from darkness for the prisoners, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor and the day of vengeance of our God." And this was really important to us as we were seeking God about our future and what he was asking of us. And these words are incredibly important, not just for us, but for us as a church. These are the words that Jesus used to begin his ministry, to share what he was going to be all about. And as his followers, these words are for us too. This is what we should be all about. And for us, for Charlene and I, that meant moving to Uganda. But what has been amazing, wrong way, is that as we've begun to go and serve and seek God in the slums of Kampala, we've begun to see this following verse in that passage become a reality in what we see. Because it says, God then promises to comfort all who mourn, to provide for those who grieve in Zion, to bestow on them a crown of beauty instead of ashes, the oil of joy instead of mourning, and a garment of praise instead of spirit of despair. And there have been many moments over the last few months when we have seen real pain and brokenness, situations that look like ashes, death, hunger, abuse, despair, sickness. And this, honestly, has often been a little overwhelming. However, what we've also seen is God bringing good out of some of the darkest situations. We have seen this in reality. We've seen how God can and does bring beauty out of ashes and joy instead of mourning. And it's great to have an opportunity to share some of that with you today.
So Kampala is a fast developing city with many of the things that you'd find here, really. So there are some cinemas and shopping malls and supermarkets. However, many people are left behind this development, and thousands of the rural poor are attracted to the city by the hope of a better life, which never actually comes. And it's families like these who we serve and who we work with, living in very poor conditions around the capital. And this morning, we'd like to introduce to you two of these communities, Kasubi, which Rob works in, and Kotogotu, which I work in.
So this is a moment where we're going to play some videos. Unfortunately, the computer hasn't liked our videos this morning, so you'll just have to imagine as we describe. So Kasubi is where I work most of my time, and it's a village within walking distance of, there we go, there's a picture of Kasubi, It's a village within walking distance of where we live. And in some ways, it's a thriving place of business and commerce. There's tailors and people who fix shoes and lots of fruit and veg stalls, all kinds of different businesses around the area. However, in the middle of the village is a slum of around 100 houses, all owned by one landlord. The houses are made of mainly concrete, and they're very tightly packed together so that the landlord can make the most amount of money out of the land that he owns. It's typical for families of 4 or more to live in these tiny one-room slum houses, often no bigger than a single mattress. It's very hard to even imagine, but these families survive in these kinds of conditions. There is a latrine block which was provided by the charity some years ago, but all the families in that community have to share 3 toilets and have to journey 10 minutes to get clean water, which with a jerry can on your head filled with litres of water is quite a distance. Not one that I could do, I think. And due to the poor living conditions that these families face, illness and sickness spread very quickly. And the charity we work for, Revelation Life, have been working in Kasubi for just over 3 years. And despite the difficult living conditions, the mamas, that's the mums, living there are often full of joy and thankfulness to God. And that is a massive challenge and encouragement to me as I live and work with these people, seeing their dignity and gratitude in the face of so many difficulties. Many work very hard for very little money. By washing clothes or sorting coffee or vanilla. Some have skills and can make things like mats, but they're always working for very small amounts of money. Many mamas are very young. One girl, 16-year-old, just had her baby about a month before we left, and that's not uncommon at all in the environment that we work in. But they're very committed to their children and really want the best for them. And they do this often with very little education and little support from the father, sadly. Many men in Kasubi and in Kampala itself have more than one wife or have left the family home offering little support for their family. It's not uncommon for these families to go without food from day to day or be able to treat illnesses, even simple illnesses, simply because they don't have the money to take that trip to the doctor. HIV is common, and although it's treatable, it's still a source of real shame and fear. This is the smallest slum that our charity works in. As I said, there's only around 100 houses, although we do work with families in the wider community as well who face similar struggles. Charlene.
So Katogo 2 is a community built illegally on swampland. So the houses are mostly made of mud, and there is the constant underlying threat that they may be knocked down. So due to this, people are quite nervous of working together and establishing businesses. But there are a few small businesses along the side of the road. Very simply, someone might lay out a sheet and sell some charcoal or some fruit. But the main businesses that thrive are the small bars selling and brewing alcohol. Alcoholism and addiction are quite a problem in Katogo too, which naturally leads to the abuse and the neglect of some children. So Revelation Life have been working in Katogo 2 for about 18 months. And it's a slum community home to, we think, about 2,000 families. But homes continue to be squeezed in any remaining spaces. You don't think there's room for a house, and then you realise, yes, there is. So it's about a 10-minute drive from our offices, and I often get there by walking and then catching a matatu, which is a little local bus. There's a lot of rubbish on the floor and a lot of broken glass. And the majority of the mamas get by collecting discarded plastic and washing it and taking it to a nearby factory. This is really hard work with their babies strapped to their back in the sun. And often the factory can just close down for several weeks without any notice, just wiping out that family's income. Similar to Kasubi, there's very poor sanitation and damped and cramped conditions, which can make children very vulnerable to sickness. It was really horrible to see measles spread throughout the community in about April when the rainy season came, and really challenging for us, only being there for a few months, to make decisions about which children needed emergency medical care and which children would be okay. But despite the challenges of working in Katoga too, I can honestly say that I really love the community. The children are really beautiful, and the mamas are so courageous. And there is a really robust sense of community, which is truly inspirational. They really demonstrate what it means to love and to serve your neighbour. And there's often real joy and humour in community gatherings. They're great fun, and their strength and determination is really inspirational.
So our role has been over the last 7 months to be what we call slum ambassadors. And what that really means is it's our job to walk alongside the families that we work with, building relationship with mamas and tatas, that's the mums and the dads, and their children, and begin to learn about their lives and to encourage them with the gifts God has given them, and also in the challenges that they face. This helps us as we build relationship and learn to really understand what we can do to help, whether that's through advice or action or particular aid. Also, almost always, it leads to us praying with people in the community for God to provide, for him to bring healing or wisdom, and often all three of those things. Because we so often feel out of our depth. And it's only God who can bring that wisdom that we need, which is so important. And we also, alongside that, we also lead projects within the communities, such as weekly Bible study classes for mamas and a feeding program for malnourished children, which is something that is vital, as often children have really bad nutrition and can lead to all kinds of sickness. Alongside all of that, we also have a responsibility for a project that brings basic literacy and numeracy to one of those communities, some areas to do with business development and community health care.
So our understanding of poverty is holistic, meaning it's not just material lack, but it includes social and emotional and social factors as well. So we don't go into the communities pretending to have all the answers, as to really love and value people means that we recognise and champion their dignity and their gifting. So ultimately our work in the communities is seeking God's restoration and empowering families to know more of who God is and who they are and the gifts that he has given them. It is also really important to raise up leaders who can unite and mobilise their own community, enabling people to work together and change their own communities.
So we just want to share with you a few stories of God's restoration and things that we've seen him do in our work in Kampala that might highlight some of what Charlene's just said. So this is Mama Saddam and one of her children, Saddam. Mama and Tata Saddam live in a very small slum house in Kasubi, and they have 6 children. Now, one day when we were in the community, we were called to their house because there'd been domestic abuse. And we got there and found that Tata had beaten Mama. He'd got into a rage, he'd been drinking, and he'd lashed out at his wife. Disturbing for us to witness that. But what we did, we were able to sit down with them to calm the situation and begin to come to an understanding of what might have caused it. When we spoke to Tata, it was clear that he felt a lot of shame because he couldn't provide for his family and had turned to alcohol and unfortunately had lashed out. So we reported the incident to the authorities, and understandably, Mama left Tata and moved to another home. But without the support of the dad, the family were going to struggle both emotionally and financially. And so we spent a lot of time with Mama Saddam over the coming months, praying with her, talking with her, listening to what she was thinking and her plans for the future. And what we began to see in this time was an amazing reconciliation between the husband and the wife. In a move which is quite rare in our culture in Uganda, the father came back to the wife and begged for forgiveness. He sought reconciliation. He he promised that he was going to try and stop drinking. And he managed to get another job, a more stable job, to show that he was serious about caring for his family. And so it was amazing to begin to journey with them and see that family become more stable. And eventually, Mama allowed Tata to rejoin them in the family home. And today, that family is more stable. They have more resources, so they're able to send their oldest children to school. And we're working with Tata now as he tries to fight what is a very common problem, as Charlene said, alcohol addiction.
So I'd like to share about Mama Vivian. So in March we started a community healthcare course for a group of mamas in Banda slum, sitting with the group each week as they enthusiastically discussed information to protect their children's health and also influence their own community was one of the highlights of my week. One young woman who came was Mama Vivian. Mama Vivian's husband had recently died while she was pregnant, leaving her homeless with her newborn baby. Eventually she was taken in by an older woman in the community, but life was still hard for her. One week I remember her saying that she felt so small because her problems felt so big. So she often seemed shy and unsure of herself. But was really keen to learn, and as she got to know the other group members, you could really see her confidence growing. And for this reason, we were so excited to see Mama Vivian volunteer to actually teach a healthcare lesson to members of her own community. So that week, knowing that they were going to be teachers, they all came with a lot of anticipation, and they had a quick recap of the lesson and split into 4 teams to go out and teach. And they were teaching about dehydration, which is a real problem with children in the slums because diarrhea is common. And they were going out to teach how to make an oral rehydration solution with sugar and salt and water, which can really save a child's life. So all the teams went out to different areas of their community and just gathered people around to start teaching them. And they just did amazingly well. They were just really engaging. Some of them got quite a crowd and just came back buzzing with excitement of their achievement. And just seeing their potential and their joy emerging was one of my best moments in Uganda. And this is Mama Vivian on the left with her 2 friends collecting their certificate for completing their whole course.
This is Mama Katumba. And I first met Mama Katumba in my first week in Uganda. Mama had been evicted from her house because she couldn't afford the rent anymore. And so she was living in a very small wooden shack in the side of a road. Not fit for anybody or anything to live in, really. It would let in the rain when it rained. And because it was on the side of the road, passing cars, if they swerved off the road, then they could easily hit and demolish this very unsafe structure. But it's all she had or could afford at the time. But despite all this, as this picture kind of shows, really, Mama is one of the most joyful people I have ever met. Truly an inspiring lady. And we decided just after we arrived that we could sponsor her oldest child, Katumba, to go to school. And that would do 2 things. First, it would ease the burden on Mama and her financial situation. And also, it would give him the opportunity of an education that was completely out of reach for him. But maybe equally or more important than that, what we began to do is spend time with Mama each week talking about how she could earn an income that would provide for her family. And so we worked with her as she started a fruit and veg stall, encouraged and advised her as she began to sell different produce. And it was brilliant. Each week we would go to see Mama and she'd be selling something else. She'd be expanding her range of goods to the point where she was even cooking things herself to sell on the side of the road. Alongside this, we started to talk to Mama about how she could save small amounts of money week by week, slowly but slowly, so that eventually in time she would have enough money to get a deposit for another house. So it was a really great day for us, the day when I got to to visit Mama Katumba one week, and she gave us the amazing news that the time had come that she had enough money that she'd earned and saved so she could then provide the deposit for another house. And we celebrated with her that God had blessed her hard work and commitment to her family.
And finally, many of you may have heard the story of Mama Aisha, who we now call Mama Nasul after her new baby Nasul. We were unsure of whether to share her story, as you may have heard so much already through our updates. But in the end, for that reason, as so many of you may have interceded on their behalf, we thought you'd like to hear how they are doing. So it was Mama Nasul's journey, which started to show me how God could raise beauty from ashes. The family story gives me hope of his promised restoration in some of the darkest of moments. For those of you who may not know, Mama lost her baby daughter, Aisha, who's just 18 months old, to malnutrition. And then a month later gave her life to Jesus. Through her pain and her struggles and her mourning, he revealed his hope and his new life to her. A week after becoming a Christian, Mama Nasul also led her Muslim husband to Jesus. And since then, we've continued to meet with them and to encourage them and to pray with them. And it's really great to see Mama truly blossoming in her faith. At every opportunity, she's happy to share her testimony of coming to know Jesus, of him healing her, and how she's God's child. Whenever we come to the community to worship, sometimes we just turn up with the guitar and sing together. She's just really keen to come and praise with us. And we've also started a discipleship group in Kotogo too, just about a month ago, of about 10 to 20 women, and she's really central to that group, encouraging her neighbours to come and really just coming alongside others to champion what God's doing in their lives. That doesn't mean everything is fine. Like us, she's on a journey of transformation and restoration. She's still mourning the loss of her daughter, and the family are still struggling financially. Before I left, they said they were 2 months behind in their rent. But they're looking for ways to find extra income, and we just want to thank you for praying for them.
So there are so many other stories we would love to share with you, and maybe we'll get a chance afterwards, after the service, of the amazing people it is our privilege to work with, like Jaja Joel in this picture. Jaja means grandmother, and she looks after all these children all by herself, and she does an amazing job. Obviously, not all situations work out the way that we hope and pray they do. And living where we do and working where we do is often very messy and confusing and even painful sometimes. We see children go missing, get abused, get very sick, and even die because of the poverty their family faces. And it really hits home to us just the reality of poverty, that it really does kill, that it does strip away hope and life, and it breeds fear and shame. And it's hard, it breaks our hearts to see, and I'm sure it breaks yours too. It makes us angry. It makes us question, if we're honest. And it challenges us. But most importantly, I think it makes us want to fight harder for justice and for better futures for the communities that we work with. Because we all have to respond, don't we, to the reality of poverty. It can be tempting to maybe ignore it, or perhaps to just give up because the challenge is too hard or seems too impossible. But I guess one of the things that Charlene and I have learned over the last 7 months is that actually we've witnessed too much of the pain that it brings to ignore it. But equally, we've seen too much of the hope and the joy that can come through to think that it's just impossible, to believe that things can't change. And we really, truly believe in all that we've seen, that it is God's will to restore and reconcile his people, and that we all have a part to play in that. in one way or another?
So when we return in September, it's September now, isn't it? Next week, it's gone quick. We have committed to stay till next July to manage community empowerment, aid and child development strategies for the charity. Our experience over the last few months has confirmed to us more and more that the most effective way to help people move out of poverty is through empowerment rather than handouts. Although sometimes aid is appropriate, such as giving food to dangerously malnourished children, ultimately we want to be showing in word and in action that we believe in the potential and the capability of parents to find their own solutions to their own problems and to provide for their own children. And this is part of honouring and respecting the God-given value and dignity that they have. So that is why we're excited about the possibility of leading strategies that focus on community empowerment, supporting groups and families as they help themselves and also help each other. And one of the ways we're looking at doing that is by helping communities to pool their own resources and run their own savings groups, alongside providing other essential areas of adult education such as literacy, health, and vocational skills, which is all part of empowering people to discover their own potential and their own route out of poverty.
Alongside that focus, we also be responsible for the management of the ongoing child development work of the charity, which includes informal education, the sponsorship program, and street clubs, which is the picture you see. One of my colleagues, the person I work with the most there, Ronnie, is playing a game that we would call What's the Time, Mr. Wolf? But in Uganda they don't have many wolves, so we say, what's the time, Mr. Elephant? So he's doing an elephant impression, if you can believe that.
It's a bit of a scary elephant, to be honest.
But we really want to share with children their value and what God thinks of them through games and songs and all of those kinds of things. Ultimately, though, we believe, of course, that the quality of life for the children that we work with is going to be most greatly affected through the empowerment of their parents, and actually especially mothers. So these two areas that we're going to be involved in are very closely linked together. Well, thank you for giving us the opportunity to come and share with you. We hope that what we said has given you an idea of what we've been doing, and perhaps more importantly, what God has been doing and what he's been doing both in our lives but also in the lives of the people that we work with. We have really valued your support over the last 7 months. It has been quite incredible, the emails that we've received and just the sort of little moments of contact, which is we've just valued so much. Especially when things have been tough and situations have not worked out as we hope, knowing your support and your prayers are with us, honestly, has been a massive bonus for us. Before we left, we said we couldn't do this on our own and wanted to share this journey with you. And we hope that this has happened. We hope that we've been able to keep you up to date, and we'll continue to do that as we go back. And we'd continue, obviously, to value your support as we go back and begin these new roles. And please continue to pray for the families that we work with, for people like Mama Nasul and Mama and Tata Saddam and others. If you don't get our prayer updates and would like to, then there's a little form here which we'll leave somewhere. Maybe we'll leave it on this chair down here. And just fill that in, and we'll add you to our database, and we'll send those out to you fairly regularly, hopefully. But thank you so much. It's been really, really great to be with you this morning, and we pray God blesses you all in the months to come. Thank you.